Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Welcome to Enough. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is our first episode.
I'm so excited, Maya. I'm a little nervous,
I'm
but
so
more
glad you just said
excited.
that. Yeah, can we just get it over with? How nervous we are.
Exactly. Breathe.
I know. Whew. But anyway, we're just it's the first time we're gonna have growing pains, and we'll probably say something silly and just keep it moving.
That's what I mean. We have to go. We have to just plow through
Yes.
and do
And
the rest. So.
also, it's live, so like we should have known. But anyway, um, what do you want to talk about this evening?
Oh, I was sort of disappointed to hear about the minimum wage, not going through uh, in this new bill that was like monumental. I mean, like I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but I just felt like the minimum wage finally had a chance and it fell through. So I don't know. What do you think about it?
I think it's unfortunate. I think one of the ways we can absolutely help lessen the um, disparity in incomes is to bring up the working poor, right? So I am disappointed as well. I don't understand why people don't want people who work hard, because the less you make, the harder you work. I don't know why they don't want them to have a livable wage.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the time when I was making minimum wage. And, I think most people think, oh, these are teenagers who are making that kind of money. And it's the beginning of their, either they're not serious, they're part time, they're being supported by someone else. But I remember I was 29 years old and I was working in a public library. I had a bachelor's degree, I had student loans, I had all kinds of, um, you know, debt and responsibilities that came with it. I was married, I didn't have kids yet, but I was making minimum wage. And I remember I was working at the county library and having a degree and being in library school. The librarian gave me all kinds of responsibility. I was opening the library, closing it. I was, managing people and resources. And I was making less than people were making at McDonald's. So, I just feel like the reality is, people just don't really have a good sense of who's making minimum wage. And and to give someone a livable wage, to make the bare minimum a livable wage, how much of an impact that would have on people's
I
lives.
absolutely agree. I think people assume it's children, and it's not children. It is single moms trying to make ends meet, maybe working two minimum wage jobs, which are, maybe the single mom had a baby when they're in high school, or, whoever, whatever their circumstances, it's women usually, and then their children. And so that's why I'm like, let's pay people a livable wage, because it affects children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no way you can make it on a minimum wage. So I
Yeah.
hope it comes back. And with seriousness and um a real commitment to actually get it signed through. And I do understand why they took it out of the bill, but I hope it comes back.
Yeah, I hope so too. When they do a budget or something, like whenever they bring it back, I just want to add that 50% of employees that are making $15 an hour or below cost the country $100 billion in subsidies. So what we do is like welfare, food stamps, TANF, Medicaid. So we're paying for it anyway. I'd much rather have our goods be a little bit higher and allow people to be able to pay their own rent without getting Section 8 housing, or to allow people to pay for their own groceries. I think it
Yeah.
just completely changed the landscape. And $15 isn't a lot, but it's
No,
still
that's the minimum. That's still not going to make anybody rich, right?
not that much.
No, I'm, it will make a difference though, especially in places that have a lower cost of living. It will make a huge difference. So I did not know that, but I think that just makes me even more, makes me even more upset about how long we've stayed at the same salary.
Yes. And then, the pushback is always like, well, I don't want my milk to be $7 a gallon, and I don't want my cereal to be $6 a box. Or, it's always something like everything is inflation was going to kill us and it's going to be too much. But in Seattle, it's not, honey, go see your father. In Seattle, I apologize, they didn't raise anything. Things are still going. People are still having their small businesses. I know it's not easy, but it's still doable.
It's working. Yeah. And good news is here in Virginia, they have passed it. So we should expect to see a difference, I hope, in lifestyles for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. So what else is on your mind, Maya?
Let's see. I wanted to talk about Hr1 and Hr4 because that's all I keep hearing. And
what's that? What's HR? What do you mean by HR1 and HR4?
So Hr1 I know is for the People Act, and
okay.
then Hr4 is the John Lewis's Voting
Act.
Right. So I did a little bit of reading and research, and I think it's really important that we know what's going on and what's coming up.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge, especially after this last election
Yeah.
and what we've gone through. So, yeah. So tell me about Hr1 and I'll tell you what I know about Hr4.
Real quick history on it, just so people will know. It was introduced back in 2019. Obviously, it didn't go through. It sat on McConnell's desk, I guess, for a couple of years, and they just reintroduced it. It passed the House, and now it's back at the Senate. And so I understand they're saying that the Republicans are probably going to filibuster it. But hopefully, with public pressure and us reaching out to people, our Congress people, they will pass it and not filibuster it. So we'll have to see about that. But at face value, it's basically a bill that's going to expand our voting rights, correct campaign finance laws, which are ridiculous, which will help to actually reduce the influence of money in politics. It'll limit gerrymandering and create new ethics rules for federal lawmakers, which all those things sound good to me. I don't know why people wouldn't want to put that through.
Yeah, when I was reading about it, I thought about John McCain. I mean, I hear, what you're saying, that you're absolutely expect the Republicans to filibuster it. It is clearly getting, it is clearly only being supported by Democrats at this point, right? But, when I think of campaign finance reform, the person that comes in my mind is John McCain. So it sort of, I don't know why we can't get some bipartisan support for it, considering this has been a Republican issue at some point. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree, but nothing that is happening on the political landscape for the past 4 years makes sense to me anyway.
That's true.
I see people voting against their constituents' interests, and then they stay in power. It's like I'm very confused. I'm constantly in a state of confusion when it comes to national politics and what people are doing and how people are allowing the people who are hurting them to keep doing it. But you mentioned the campaign finance reform. And so the cool thing I found out is that they have this thing where they're going to actually have the public finance national campaigns. And so once fees are assessed in civil and criminal trials against banks and corporations for doing corporate malfeasance, which is basically misconduct,
right,
that money will go into national campaigns. And that's how people will get money as well, which I like that. And it's going to be equally distributed. It won't be like whoever's the winner or the red or the blue, but that is, that's one of the ways that they can start having it funded, I guess, equally.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's huge because I know, at some point I considered running for local office, and it really was the cost of campaigning that gave me pause. Because it's a huge investment. And if you want to do it the right way without having, interest, it's hard to get money from people, specifically. And it seems like that by giving everyone at least a baseline, that would make it more fair and equitable.
I absolutely agree. And since we're talking about money, I like the idea. So, as far as the ethics and how they want to create new laws for them to have, I guess, like better morals, the president and vice president candidates must show 10 years of tax returns or you just can't run. I like that, right? I'm still waiting for
I was going to say, whenever
tax returns. Like, I don't even care. I just want to see it to see if they exist. Like, come to find out you ain't been filing your tax.
I don't think people even knew that you didn't have to until recently, right?
Yeah,
I mean, exactly until we had a president who wouldn't show them.
Yes. So, and then also, I do like the fact that so when Congress is sued for discrimination, maybe from an employee or something like that, we pay the settlement. And I didn't know that. Yeah, I know, right? So now they'll have to pay back whatever settlement happens, they'll have to pay it back out of their personal money. I like that very, very much.
So I mean, I've heard of former presidents, we won't name without naming them, who are using who are campaigning and raising money to settle their debts and lawsuits now. So I wonder, I thought they could use their campaign money. Like if they had money left over, they could use that for that.
Maybe for that, but the point is the American tax people are not
paying
when they get sued and they're wrong. That's the part that I like. Now, if you want to lie to your base and have them donate to your fake platform and they give their money freely, that's on them. I'm just saying the taxes that I pay, I don't want it to go to the person who you harmed when you're the one that harmed them.
Right. It's almost like we're their insurance. Basically, we're the malpractice insurance.
Yes, we are their insurance. We're their everything, but they don't want to give us anything.
Yeah, that's definitely.
It's absolutely what it is.
Yeah, I think that's
everything.
That's true. I mean, where do you think we're going with this, though? Like, so what's your prediction for how we're gonna get Hr1 to what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. Somebody better call Stacey and it's my prediction.
Stacey's tired, I'm sure. Right?
Actually, she actually said, I saw her in an interview on Rachel Maddow, I think it was, and she explained her ideas. I wish I was taking notes because some of it is a little bit out of my breadth of knowledge.
Right.
But there are ways that we can get this passed that Congress needs to start enacting now. There's like an enactment they can do. How they pass, how they make Merrick Garland the new AG. It's the ways in which they do that. Those are constitutional, I guess, offices or has something to do with how the Constitution is written. And she was saying if we make a part of voting a part of that, if we include that in that provision, then we can get these passed. So I didn't know you were going to ask. We've been able to.
No, I know. But you know what? Like the reality is, Maya, we are regular people, right? So we're having a normal conversation. We don't know everything, and I hope these people who are watching us aren't expecting us to know everything. But maybe in the comments, if somebody does know what that is, they can add it and we can all get smarter.
Or I'll just call Stacey when I get off.
Or you can, maybe Stacey will comment. I'm sure she's watching.
But seriously, if I would have known, I would have had like a good sentence prepared.
All right, so I wasn't trying to trip you up. All right, so wait. All right, so tell me, is there anything else about Hr1 we need to know?
I mean, I will say it requires early voting in all states, which clearly we don't have. So I think that's going to be fantastic. And it'll make Election Day a federal holiday, which I think is fantastic. People should be able to get off work. So there are a ton of great things in Hr1. But I would say I would encourage people to go and read about it themselves. Go to Wikipedia or go to the actual Congress's website and find out. There's a ton of stuff in there that affects us positively. And I will just say one last thing, which is there are over 200 bills that have been introduced since January that would limit voting rights across the country. So some of the reasons why we want to strengthen voting rights, but there are 200 reasons why they don't want us to. So we should know. We should know what's out there.
Yeah. So yeah, that brings me to the Voting Rights Act, which is Hr4, right? And that's all about um, trying the federal government being responsible and making sure that states cannot restrict people's rights to votes, right? It is a restatement of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which we all know about. We all know about John R. Lewis, who has become the namesake for this new voting rights bill, because we know he was very instrumental in making sure that the first Voting Rights Act was passed. And so it's named after him. And of course, in 2020, he passed away. And so, but it is the other, I feel like it is the strength behind the what is it? Voting for the People. What is it? The Hr1 Act, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's what will give it strength. Like they have to go hand in hand, right? So basically, for those people who may have studied the Voting Rights Act in high school in history class, just a reminder that that this bill came after, or this act was passed after such events as the March from Selma to Montgomery, all Black people in the South who were oppressed by Jim Crow laws and could not vote. And 1965 was when my mother and my father were living in Alabama and couldn't vote, and their family, their grandfather. So this is not like ancient history, right? We know that we had the famous vision of John Lewis and other activists who were beat down by Alabama state troopers on the Edward Pettus Bridge. And we know that that was the passion that led for a monumental change so that Black people and people across the country could vote. But in 2006, it was reinstated. And then in 2013, the Supreme Court, in all its wisdom, said, hey, discrimination is not here anymore. And in Shelby County versus Holder, they pretty much gutted it. All right, so here we are again, and it's going to take an act of Congress,
Yeah.
Voting Rights Act, for us to get it back. Because guess what? After 2013, what do we think happened? You've already talked about the over 200 laws and state laws across this country. Now, it's not just the South that was being monitored by the right that have enacted things to restrict people's voting. And it affects those people who are likely to vote Democratic, which is why we don't have bipartisan support for it. And it is mostly Black and brown communities. So poor communities, but it affects everyone, right? Because if your state or your local office can create laws to maintain a power structure that doesn't benefit you, right? Then, and there's no federal strength to stop it, then it affects everyone, right? It's like basic democracy. Democracy 101 is that people can vote, right? So just to give you some further proof of how much of a risk this is in not having the Voting Rights Act reinstated. Since 2020 election, Arizona has 19 restrictive bills, Pennsylvania has 14 restrictive bills, and Georgia has 11. They rank 1, 2, and 3 in creating restrictive voting laws. And we also know, of course, that Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania were the swing states that decided the election, right? So it's huge. Like this has got to be addressed.
Well, I think another way to look at it when people are just like hemming and hawing, or do I really want to care? At least for me, how it resonates with me is the pre-clearance is gone, right? And so we want to reinstate pre-clearance. And what that is when a state wants to change when the legislators of a state want to change people's rights for voting in their state, it has to go through the federal government. It has to be cleared, or it's considered pre-clearance. And then the government looks at it, and it looks at it specifically for infringements of rights and for things like that that would hurt people. So without that, and the argument to get rid of it is like, well, I'm a state, I should have the right to do it. It just reminds me of states' rights.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's basically what we're back to.
Absolutely.
Like, we back to this, we back to Jim Crow. We're back to, was it a war about, you know, they would say it was states' rights. I mean, we know it was racism and slavery.
Right. It's racism.
Like, come on, we're back here, yo. Like,
yeah. And how can you, this is the part that just like kills me, right? We participate in the United Nations and go to other countries to ensure a free and fair election. And we won't do it in our own country. So we'll have a federal or a national election and not have a standard set for every state to follow in giving everyone equal right and equitable access. And considering the level of technology we have today, there is no reason to have the restrictions that have been in place.
Absolutely agree.
It's just, I mean, I'm pissed even just talking about, I'm sorry, excuse me, but even just talking about it, it's just, there's no excuse for it,
What else doesn't make any sense? It doesn't make any sense that in the United States, it takes people 5 and 6 and 7 and 10 hours to stand in line to vote. That makes absolutely no sense.
That is so true. And, of course, that happened after 2016, after 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did we see that before? I don't think so. I've been voting for a long time now, right? I never experienced.
Again, we're just going backwards. So I hope that they figure out a way to get these two things enacted, because they're incredibly important to our democracy. It will affect all of us. It will absolutely affect all of us. And if you haven't been voting, well, shame on you. You better start now.
I was like, don't even start me with the people who say they didn't vote. I always say this: if voting wasn't important, people wouldn't be going through these great measures to stop you from voting.
Okay, well, I'll say this: if you don't vote, never tell me, because I'm gonna get up in your face. Like, what is wrong with you?
Exactly. And you're never gonna have a perfect candidate. And so that's not what you're voting for.
No, you can. There is a way to have a perfect candidate. You can run for office. People can.
This is true.
Maybe get off the sidelines and decide to make a difference themselves.
That's true. And that's what it takes. But that's also why we need campaign finance reform too. So it goes back to the Voting Rights Act. People need to have the ability to do that, to vote, to run. And we have to make it easy for them to do. I feel like we have gotten like really, really tense.
I know. I think we should have done this like people massaging us or something.
I know, like
you can't see down here, so I should have someone rubbing my feet or something. I got upset.
Next show.
We got to get that in the budget.
Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. All right, so we don't have a lot of time, but I mean, like, send me out like something cool. What happened this week that we could talk about that's like light?
That happened as light? I can't think of anything that happened as light, but I mean, I did see that interview with Meghan Markle. She spilled all the tea about the people in England. That was good.
I hate to say that I was like, wow, really sort of enjoying it, but because I felt bad. But interesting, isn't it? Like,
and heartbreaking too. I feel really horrible about what she went through, about what any woman goes through with postpartum depression.
Yeah, that's true.
It is not a joke, and it is very serious. And the guilt you have from being depressed because you have your baby and you should be happy because your baby's alive and healthy and all these great things and 10 fingers and toes. And then to have all that, it's a bit much. But that being said, I love that they told all their business.
Yeah. You know what? Someone said that Oprah woke up and said, let me walk down the street and destroy the British monarchy.
Yes, she did.
Talk to my neighbors.
I like the fact that Meghan Markle woke up and was like, how you think you're going to come for me and I didn't send for you, royal family? Me mess you up. You don't mess with a Black woman like
you
that.
ain't playing with me. Yeah, I mean, you could tell she was serious at the wedding. So I'm gonna give her credit. I feel like she has maintained a certain level of integrity. And of course, it has been fodder for the British tabloids, which is the bigger issue, right? But and I mean, it's a bigger issue, and I think I feel like I can only just look because I'm not British, right? Like there's no control over it, but I'm glad they're in the United States. Maybe they can really get past it now.
Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I will say my last thing about this is my little prediction. If you look at the Commonwealth countries who pay into the crown and who allow those people to be who they are and to live their life, I think it's at 68%, almost 70% of the citizens of those countries are brown. So I'm just waiting for what happens in 5 to 10 years to see if the crown still looks the way it does, to see if anything has changed or if they go broke. I don't know. That would be funny, but I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see.
We'll have to see. I feel like they own too much land.
They may have to sell some if they ain't collecting their royalties.
That's true.
Why is it called royalties? See what I'm saying?
You're right. All this time.
I just head.
Or we could try to institute that here in the United States, and we could become. I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
no, we pay taxes.
They pay tax. Oh, yeah. Well,
do they? I have no idea. I don't live in Britain.
If we do, I'm going to vote for the Obamas to be our royal family.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
all right, but that's like
we don't start with the light stuff because we'd be talking about, girl, what you
stuff. I know. I'm just kidding. First of all, I don't believe in that stuff. So yeah, but that's that. Okay,
we have to close it out.
So we have to go.
All right. So remember what I said, this is our first time. We didn't know how to start and we clearly don't know how to close, but listen, we've had great discussion.
It was. Thank you, Maya.
Good information. So your next step, contact your representative and tell them you support Hr1 and Hr4.
Yes. Put pressure on your senators and your representatives.
Absolutely. Hold their feet to the fire.
Yes. And work on your states too. Your states are acting crazy. Make sure you're up in their face too.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for joining us. We can't wait to see you again in 2 weeks.
All right. It's good talking to you.
Bye-bye.